Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoyed that little intro there. So, today we're going to have a look at the long barrel 76 Sherman Jumbo. Now this is a bit of a strange vehicle. Not many people I know seem to like it, and it sort of fits into a weird place in War Thunder. Now, a lot of people think it should be BR 5.7, and in some respects I do agree, but I'll get into those in a bit. I think the main place where this vehicle falls is that everyone who plays it has obviously played the regular Sherman Jumbo 75mm, and that vehicle has a playstyle that is very different to the 76 Jumbo. And what I mean by that is you can take the normal Jumbo at 4.7 to the front lines. You can tank shots, you can use that fast firing gun to pick apart enemies using weak spots or anything you like, but at 6.7 with this tank, that's not really a reliable option. You can't just sit at the front line against Tigers and Panthers because you're going to eventually get penned and get knocked out. This tank, in my opinion, is best played exactly like a normal Sherman, or at least how you would play a Sherman at 6.0. So it's more of a vehicle you flank with in that regard. And I think that is where a lot of people don't enjoy playing this vehicle. It's like a mindset thing. So you start playing the regular Jumbo and, you can turn your brain off and just sort of sit in front of enemies and click on tanks. But it's not really an option with this one. And I think because these tanks are intrinsically so similar, well, the only difference is the gun, people are going to assume that the tank is going to play exactly the same. I did as well. When I first played it, I was awful, I was just running into Tigers and Panthers and getting knocked out very quickly. But that's really, I think, the only thing wrong with this tank is that people go into playing it all wrong. I can't really say it's anyone's fault, it's just, presented that way. The way I think this vehicle could be fixed in regard is, I don't think it should be down-tiered, but I think it should be given a assault tank layout. So basically, it's medium tank spawn costs. Same with the T14 as well, if you've played that. I think that's probably the best way to balance this vehicle. Just because in the right hands, you can do a lot of damage with it, and you're still going to jump on enemies and they're not going to be expecting jumbo armor. I think the best way to play this is like a flanker. You go around the sides of the map, you shoot things in the side with that really powerful 76, and you're probably going to run into something's head on, but it's not going to be Tigers and Panthers, it's going to be T-34-85s, maybe the odd Tiger, maybe the odd Panther, and in a situation like that, you can deal with them a lot easier than if you're just going in head on, because you also have that added bonus of, if you're on a flanking route, no one's really expecting a jumbo. But that's genuinely where I've been having the best luck with this vehicle. Because although this is, well, technically a heavy tank, it doesn't really function as one. Not in the game or, just in general. It's not as fast as a normal Sherman, but the mobility is still prevalent enough for it to be useful. And that's why I think this isn't a good heavy tank, because it effectively isn't. It is an assault tank, which is like a hybrid sort of thing. I'm not really into all the details there, but this is not a good heavy tank. And in that regard, its armor shouldn't be relied on. But the difference between, say, the Jumbo 76 and the Churchill Mark 1, which is another heavy tank, that tank can't rely on its armor at all. But its armor is the only thing it has. With this tank, you also got the maneuverability, the speed, and you've got the gun, which is something that another bad heavy tank like the Churchill doesn't have. So the only real thing I can suggest with this vehicle is you don't play it like a heavy. You don't rely on the armor, because you can afford not to. And that's where I think this vehicle is used most effectively. So let's have a quick look at the lineups, and then I'll get into the game we've got today. So this is the lineup I have for 6.0 America. So we've got the Jumbo here, which is the highlight of the day, I suppose. And then if we're up tiered, we can take out the Jackson, got that manoeuvrability, got the gun, can deal with pretty much anything you're going to see. M19, SPA, what more could you want? And the T25 as the normal medium. Now I think the Jumbo is going to work best at 6.0 to 6.3. Anything higher than that, I'd say probably go with the Jackson or the T25, just because the gun has got that killing power that the Jumbo doesn't have, mainly in the pen department, because you're going to be seeing, German tanks, Russian tanks that have a bit more armor, a bit harder to deal with. For aircraft, F7, F3, got the 3 Tiny Tims, can carry a decent loadout, and it's a pretty decent fighter as well. AD2, it's an AD2, and the P47N, which I think still does a decent job. You're fast, loads of guns, loads of bombs, loads of rockets, and all around general really good choice to have for any lineup really that doesn't enter into jet territory. So there we go, let's get into the game, which is on Korea. So here is the match today. It's one of the rare 6.0 up tiers that you find while playing this kind of BR rating. I don't really see it much, and this was the only top tier game I actually had. So, well, lucky for me it went pretty decently. Or at least I think it shows how this tank should work. And, I'm not going to say that the armor doesn't work at all. I mean, there are instances where, you are going to bounce a lot of shots. I bounced the long 88 quite a bit today. But the thing with it is that it's not something you can rely on like you can rely on the early Jumbo's armor. Because you're going to come up against things that literally, frontally, head-on, cannot pen you at all. But at this battle rating, if you're angled decently and the person you're facing isn't a great shot, they're going to bounce, but not all the time. You're going to run into people who know where to aim, or at least you want to get caught and you're not angling, and it's going to go right through and knock you out. And so it's not something you should rely on, and that's why I don't think it's a decent heavy tank. But the reason why this tank generally falls is that people are just going into it thinking they can do the same thing they did in the regular Jumbo. But, again, it's no one's fault that that's the way it's presented, because the tank is so similar, apart from the gun. And, what else are you going to think? So, heading up onto the main island here, hoping to beat some of the rather slow Germans. I can get a cheeky shot in from a little spot up here that I like to use. You can hide behind the bushes, and things usually roll around the corner and don't notice you until it's too late. It's always the spot I generally go to if I'm in a tank that isn't a light tank. Just checking the usual spots. Sometimes things like to hide up on that hill and shoot into this island, but not today. Should have really thought about that because we're playing against Germany, who aren't very quick. But anyway, just up here the door went. I had to go and pick up a parcel, so a little cut here. All I really did was sit in that corner for about, 40 seconds while I got my post. So, I'm going to hop up onto this island, and there's a Tiger E, put one into the side there underneath the turret. Don't one-shot it, but knock out the turret crew. It's going to be easy enough to finish off in the back of the turret there. So that's one Tiger dead. Now, I can hear something else just over the ridge. So I'm just going to make sure I know where it is. Drive out, just check, and it's a Panzer IV. Easy enough. In between the turret and the driver to make sure it's a one-shot, and there we go. So I'm going to reverse back up here to again minimise where the enemy can shoot me. Just checking behind me there to make sure I'm not reversing into someone. And turn around. And we're going to go over to A, which is being capped right now. See, this thing accelerates pretty quick. I mean, for a heavy tank, it is decently quick. And it certainly plays in the advantage of this tank, and I think does change how it plays. So, just going to check behind us, make sure nothing's there. I'm going to pull up onto the A side of the island and see what we can see. So just coming up here, I can see the engine deck of a Tiger. So I'm just going to sit here and wait just until I can get that right angle, so my round's going to go through and kill the crew. Now I see a Panther, give him a little tap on the shoulder there, so he turns his hull and gives me a nice one shot trying to get his turret on me quick. So just reversing back here, and I get my gun barrel shot out, which is, you know, fair play, decent shot actually, by a tank. So just pulling back into cover here, and this is a little tip I think you should try out if you've got the time. So by holding down J, I can see the name of the player that shot me, and I also see that he's got a kill. So what I can do is go into the battle log and find out what he killed, and therefore what tank he's in. So that way, as we can see, he's in a Tiger. I know what vehicle is around that corner, and I know exactly what I'm engaging. So it's just one little bonus in, you know, my court. So I'm not going to be surprised by what I see over the ridge, and I know how I'm going to engage it. Which, you know, if you've got time, if you're behind a wall, something you're repairing, and you have that little bit of extra time, it's always worth doing, just because it's another little advantage you can get yourself that doesn't really cost anything. So I'm going to pull up just around here, and I think initially he's going to be at that little outlook at the top, so just using the binoculars, just going to see where he is. Not on the top of the mountain there, and then he pops into view just around the rock. So get the gun on, just wait until that front plate is nice and flat, and right through, and one shot. Who needs a 90? So we're going to pull up onto the edge of the A point here, no, B point, excuse me, and I see it's an AA, and you know, I don't really need the kill, so I'm probably going to let the Carnarvon deal with it. But he's taking his sweet time, so why not have a little extra, get those camos done. So I'm just going to drive over here, looking for some targets, but there's nothing really around. So I was checking the leaderboard, just seeing where things could possibly be, as at this point in the game most of the Germans are going to be on the respawn, but there are going to be a few around, and something dies right behind me. I don't know what or where it is yet, so I'm not going to start my engine, just in case he hears me. I'm going to wait and listen to see where he goes. Another thing you can do with the Jumbo is play with the turret a bit. If the turret's side on, usually what's going to happen is players are going to look at that and they're going to shoot the turret, just because it's ingrained in their head that, you know, turret side on, bang, easy kill. Not with the Jumbo. It's about 152 millimeters. So that's another thing to play in your advantage. A lot of people forget just how thick the side of the turret is, so you can angle over the engine deck and with the turret as well. So we're going to push through the B point here. I'm going to be conservative at this point because there's not a lot of the team left, so I'm not going to rush in. I mean, I could deny him some spawn points, but I want to make sure that I stay alive. So I'm just scanning, seeing if I can see him through the bricks, but I can't. So we're just going to have to wait until he drives off the point. So we're going to hear him start up his engine there. Just going to wait until he pops out of view. And there he is. I can just see the smoke of the engine there, right through the side, and another one shot. This gun is really, really good. You know, even at this battle rating, it does a good enough job. You might not have the pen, but you certainly do have the killing power to make up for it. And it is very, very good in that regard. And so, as we are losing caps, I'm going to sit here and cap the B point. Now, sadly, this is where the match ends. It's quite a short one. But I do get bombed by a Stuka, you know, what can you do? It's always the planes when you're having a good game. But I got 7 kills. Mainly, you know, Tigers and the Panther. So hopefully that does show that the gun can do its job and the mobility can do its job. And the other thing you probably noticed is that I didn't take a single hit this whole game. Because this tank is mobile, it's quick, and if you know the routes to take, you can avoid fire, but that's not really the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that you don't need the armor that you've got. The tank works effectively as a Sherman, but you do have that extra armor if you do run into something. Because I'm not saying that, you know, you're going to get penned every time or you're not going to get penned. You can use that armor to your advantage, but it's not reliable. And I hope that this does show that the armor isn't really the defining factor of the tank. So I hope you enjoyed that little bit of gameplay there, and I hope it highlights what this tank is good at. So let's go on to the review screen. Right, the Jumbo 76, what do I think? Well, I think it is a very capable tank, but the way I'm presenting it does make it seem like, well, why not just take a Sherman? It's less spawn points, and it does basically everything this tank can do, the way I'm putting it. But it does and it doesn't. I mean, yeah, everything I've shown would really point towards the normal Sherman at 5.3 being the better choice, but I don't think it is. This tank can do everything that Sherman can, but it has armor. I don't really think that constitutes it being 6.0, but if this tank was given the assault tank spawn cost, which is the same as a medium tank, I think it would work fine. This tank shouldn't rely on its armor, but it can in certain situations. If you angle quick, you know, you're on a route that most of the normal heavies aren't taking, you're not going to run into things that can easily go right through you. You might meet one or two, but they're usually not going to be expecting a jumbo, so they're not prepared to go for the weak spots or know exactly where to shoot you. They're probably just going to snapshot thinking you're a Sherman. Because that is quite a surprising factor of how quick this tank is. No one's really expecting it. If they see a tank that looks like a Sherman on a flanking route, they're going to think it's a Sherman, like, straight away. They're not going to, you know, straight away think that it is, you know, a jumbo. At least, I don't think everyone will. Some people will. You know, you're going to meet those good players who know what they're doing and know tanks straight away. But you do have that little surprise factor, which is going to take a few seconds of the enemy to choose where to shoot you. If they're in something like a Tiger or a T-34, 85, it's not guaranteed they're going to go through the front plate, but if they know where to aim, they definitely can. And also, the gun itself is really, really good. It has great killing power. The only thing is, you are going to struggle with things like Tigers and Panthers from the front if you're not too confident with where you're aiming. You know, you can go through the front plate of the Tiger, but if it's angled, you know, it's hit and miss, and it can sometimes throw you off a little bit. With the Panther, you can go through the mantlet, but again, it's not reliable. But you do get AP, which is good for those angled shots if you have it loaded, and you have the APCR as well if you're up tier and you see King Tigers. However, I would recommend it's probably not the best choice to take out against things that are, you know, 7.0 battle rating, unless the BR changes or unless they change the spawn points, which I think they should. Or if they add concrete armor, because I know this tank did get like an add-on concrete armor thing. It's quite interesting. I wonder if they'll add that. That might change how I think of it as well. But I think this tank does get an unfair rap. It works very well, but if you go into it thinking it's going to function like the first Sherman at 4.7, you're not going to use this tank to its fullest potential. Just because you can't. It can't tank shots. And that's, I think, the biggest problem this tank has is that it's presented as something that it isn't. It's presented as a heavy tank, and people are going to remember, oh yeah, I tanked loads of shots in that normal jumbo, I can do the same thing in this, but I've just got a better gun. No. And that's where I think a lot of people get annoyed with it. But hopefully this video does show that there's more than one way to play this tank. And with the negatives, on the positives, I think it's a safe bet to rate this tank an 8 out of 10. So thank you very much for watching. Sorry this has been a bit of a short video, but I do think that this game does show the best way to use this tank. And I did have a lot of other games, up tiers, I was bouncing long 88s and stuff, but if you are, on the front lines taking those hits, I think you're not really playing the tank right. So I do hope that this video does show you that there are, different roles this tank can play. And I hope you take it out for yourself and, try it. You never know. You might find a new favourite. So, thank you very much for watching. Leave feedback if you have any, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.